Barnett's going to lead us in the application. Alderman Blackman and the pledge. Please stand.
And let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for a beautiful day in Ocean Springs. We're just grateful for the place we live. I thank you for this board and this mayor and everyone in this room who makes it a good place to live. Lord, with all the issues and problems and questions that people have tonight, we're just grateful we have a form of government where we can still speak and express our concerns. We're very grateful. Help us to be civil and help us to respect one another. And it's in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Felt like it was.
Motion to approve the agenda with the stated addendum.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Aldermen, second by Mr. Wade. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have three presentations this evening. We're going to start off with the first one, our fiscal year 2021 audit presentation by Alexander Van Linden.
You just tell me when to click. Tell you when to chapter. I'm Kim Marmelich. I'm the partner of ABL's Audit and Assurance Department, and with me today is Deborah Aiken, the audit director, and Maria Saylor, the senior auditor that worked on your audit. And we're here to present the findings of your 9/30/21 audit. I'm going to do a very high-level review. I've consolidated it on this PowerPoint presentation, and we'll try to keep it as condensed as we can because I see you have a very full agenda tonight. So if you'll forward to slide 3. You do get 3 reports from us as part of the audit. It's a report to those charged with governance, which is the standard required letter that has tells you what your responsibility is as the auditee and what ours is as the auditor. If we've had difficulties performing the audit, we notify you here, which we did not. And we also attach the journal entries proposed to your management and accepted by your management in this report. Next slide, please. And then I also give you the annual financial report, which is the bound green copy in front of you. And you get a recommendation letter to management from us. I mentioned already that this is as of 9/30/21. It's historical. When we walk through the presentation, we'll do some comparison to 2020, but this is of no reflection of the current year finances of the city. We're looking back in time. Next slide. On pages 5 through 10 is a required letter from your management. It's called the Management's Discussion and Analysis, and it summarizes everything in the audit report presented by your management, and it includes a section on the economic outlook of the city. So if you only read one thing, that would probably be where you should start in the management's discussion and analysis. So you did receive an unmodified opinion on your financial statements. It's the highest level of assurance that we can offer. And in the bound report, you're going to see that you have 2 full sets of financial statements. One is the government-wide financial statements, which are full accrual and it's presented like a business would be presented. The second set is fund level financial statements, which are done on a more budgetary type basis, cash in, cash out, and that's what you're used to using to manage the city on an ongoing basis. So for that reason, as we move to the next slides, go to the next please. I'm not really going to say much about these next 4 pages. They're related to the government-wide financial statements. The balance sheet or the assets and liabilities are called the statement of net position. And what's different about this than your fund level financial statements is all the assets are recorded, all the debt is recorded, including the unfunded pension liability for PERS. And then on the liabilities, could you back up the slide once, please? And on the liabilities, you're going to see that all debt that I already mentioned that the debt is covered. The next slide is the statement of activities, back one. And includes all the revenue not yet received and all expenses not yet paid. It's the sister to the statement of net position. So these are different because they have all the assets, all the liabilities, all the payables on them. And that's what makes these, and it's required by governmental accounting. So where we're going to focus our attention is on the fund level financial statements, which is what, as I mentioned, is what you use to manage the city. And so this slide right here shows that you have three major governmental funds: the general fund, the food and beverage fund, and the general obligation fund. And what this shows is, I just can't read the slide that far away. I have that, but I think I'll just go back and forth. So what this slide shows is you have a total of $13.6 million in assets in all governmental funds. If you move to the next slide, you'll see you have $5.1 million in liabilities in all governmental funds, and you ended the year with $8.5 million in net assets, all governmental funds. We're going to focus on the next slide. We're going to take a minute and look at the general fund because that's the primary fund of the city and then where the main activity is. And you're going to see some significant changes from 2020, which I want to point out to you. One is that cash was up $2.3 million, and that's related to the American Rescue Plan Act funds that you received and have not spent as of the end of the year. That also is in, if you go down to the middle of the page, you see an unearned liability, and that's where that money is sitting because you haven't spent it. So it's an unearned revenue because you have to use it for a specific purpose, and it's sitting in cash. And that's really the only significant change in your general fund if you compare it to 2020 when we look at the assets and the liabilities. On the next slide, we're going to see the statement of revenues, expenses, and fund balances for all of the funds, governmental funds. Next slide, please. And here you'll see you had a total of $19.7 million all governmental funds and revenue. The next slide shows that you had $27 million in expenditures. I want to stop here and just say that the bond refunding is reflected in these statements. So that's why you're going to see some bigger differences than you did in the prior year, but that was a one-time thing related to the bond refunding. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see where you had the new bond money of $7.9 million and other financing sources. So you ended the year with, as we saw on the first page, a positive $547,287 in revenues over expenses for the year. On the next slide, we'll dig a little deeper into the general fund, and you'll see that you had an increase in sales tax revenue compared to 2021. You had some decrease in your intergovernmental revenue, and that was related to Jackson County Board of Supervisor revenue was down compared to 2020. And you had an increase in your grant revenues related to the CARES Act money, FEMA money for the hurricane, and you also got some Tidelands money. So that's why your grant revenue was up. I will point out that Tidelands is a state grant, and this year you did not have a single audit, because you did not have more than $750,000 in federal money that you expended. So you didn't have a single audit as part of this audit. If you look at cost, overall general governmental was down. You did have some increase in health and welfare related to hurricane measures and debris removal, and culture and rec had an increase related to personnel costs and building and utility costs. So that's all I'm going to talk about on the governmental funds, unless you have questions. You have one more fund in the city, and that's the water and sewer fund. If we look at the statement of revenue, the balance sheet of that, you'll see that there was really not much change at all. You had an increase in cash. You depreciated your sewer system, which further reduced the asset that you were carrying on the books, which is what you do every year, all consistent with the prior year. On the next slide, you'll see that the biggest changes is in long-term liabilities where you paid down debt. And then we also have to record that unfunded pension liability, which is based on actuarially determined amounts It is just a number that we receive from that report. So that fluctuates based on market and other factors that change the plan's funding status. Next slide, please. One more. The revenue was up slightly, $300,000. And the main cost increase you had was related to getting the new meters and the software, and also related to water tower maintenance and increased payments to Jackson County Utility Authority. And the next slide, one more, is the presentation of the cash flow, how the cash came in related to the water and sewer fund. This is the only fund that has to present a cash flow. That's why you don't see one for the other city activities. You had $981,000 provided by operating activities. You received 18 from financing, and you used $622,000 in capital activities. So you ended the year with an overall increase of $377,000 in cash. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you have a copy of the PowerPoint. These are some note disclosures that give much more detail on the financial statements. You may choose to look at those on your own time. Then we give you two more reports as part of this audit report. One is we look at your internal controls and compliance. If we saw anything of significance, we will report it in that report, and there are no findings. We also have to test your compliance with state legal compliance, and there's a report in there, and we had no findings. We do present a management letter to you, which I don't go over in this meeting. We go over it with management. Management sets forth a plan of addressing those items, and you've all received a copy of it, so you know what those recommendations are. Can you go to the next slide? And that's it. That's all I want to present today. The audit went well. Your staff works hard for you. And as I mentioned, you've got an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can offer. Any questions? Any hard questions?
No, thanks. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, very positive.
I'd like to suggest, though, Mayor, that we have the next finance meeting, sooner than later, just a quick rundown of the management letter and all addressed, just so we can better understand more than just a rundown. I'd just like to go through it internally instead of just individually. I'd like for us to look at it.
So let me just mention, if you have any questions,
Right.
you know how to contact me. I'll be glad to talk to any of you about any questions that you have that you might come up with.
It's a lot to digest.
It's a lot to digest. It's
and
big.
I would rather us look at it, as a group at some point, just for some highlights. I'd like you to highlight some things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know
I'll
what
do
you're
that.
doing.
Anybody else have any questions or suggestions? All right, the next presentation is,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the audit report.
got a motion by Mr. Benby. Second by Mr. Aldermen. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next presentation is the State Commissioner for Cal Ripken is presenting Ocean Springs Baseball Organization and the City of Ocean Springs with their League of the Year Award.
Yep. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I want to say it's an honor to be here. My name is Terry Crow. I'm with the Mississippi Babe Ruth Association for the state of Mississippi. Every year we take a deep dive in some of our leagues at what goes on and what the activity is. This year and in past years, we recognize Ocean Springs over their league retention and league growth. Most of you know that park is bringing in a lot of youth to that facility, and every year that league continues to grow, and it grows with great expectations that we're developing leaders in the community, not just ball players. So this year it was pleased to see that our 13 through 15-year-old age groups grew tremendously. We were at 15, 18 kids 4 years ago. This year we're at 60 plus. These kids are not out running the roads at night. They're playing baseball, and that's what it's about. So it's just a small token of appreciation that we're presenting to the league, and I want to say thank you to the City of Ocean Springs for allowing Cal Ripken to come into that ballpark. It means a lot to me. I'm a Van Cleveland for years, and to see Ocean Springs take over 57 like they have with the youth is special to me because it's something that we're all growing to achieve. So thank you guys very much for what you do for the kids and allowing us to be in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Congratulations, Robbie, and
Yep.
our Cal Ripken League for working so hard. We hosted the state tournaments, and y'all did a fantastic job. Proud of the work y'all done.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a few minutes, say thank you to the mayor, board of aldermen, Park and Recs for all the preparation. The state tournament was held on July 23rd to 26th. Thank you to Alderman Burgess and also Stacy Zorn that helped out with some of the volunteers. We had the mayor's youth council was involved, the honor society, Ocean Springs Middle School cheerleaders. Everybody came together in the community to put on a really great tournament. So thank you so much for everything. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie.
Over here.
Sure.
Let's take it out of the plastic.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a presentation from Skate Park Planning and Development Citizens Committee.
Hey, how are y'all doing? I'm Chris Boche. Currently wrapping up my electrical engineering degree from Mississippi State. With me is Matthew Hosey. Let him introduce himself.
Hey everybody, Matthew Hosey. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a project manager for Jackson County, but I'm here today just as a private citizen to show my support and try to help get a skate park built in Ocean Springs. It's a long time coming, something we've been talking about for a long time, and we're finally putting forth the effort to try to bring our concept to reality. It's no secret that skateboarders can be a colorful bunch of people, but we just like to invite everybody to keep an open mind about our presentation and just know that, skateboarding is also a very rewarding sport for those who participate in it, and you have to have a lot of perseverance and know how to overcome failure to get good at it. So go ahead, Chris, you can.
All right, so just to start off, we're going to go through the problem we see, the locations where you can currently skateboard in Ocean Springs, our proposed location, and the contributions of everybody that we see that would have to be a part of this to make it happen. So currently, I'm sure you're all aware, there's not really a safe place in Ocean Springs for anybody to skateboard. Right now, you can go down Front Beach, East Beach. I'm sure you've all seen kids ripping down downtown Ocean Springs, or private property where you run the risk of, causing damage to somebody's private property, having a confrontation with law enforcement, or, there's no real good place to go.
Next slide.
So what we want to do is build a park underneath the overpass between Porter Avenue and Lover's Lane. Right now, it's underutilized. It's basically just dirt. There's nothing going on there. And it would be a great spot for a skate park. It's shaded. It's got everything it needs. There's plenty of room. So you go to the next one. So that's the area. I wheeled it off. It's roughly, you got about 12,000, 14,000 square foot on the north side, maybe about 7,000 or 8,000 on the south side right there. What we want to do is focus mainly on the north side, but possibly have two phases where there's a north side and a south side, or some type of mixed use on the south side possibly. So just to give y'all an idea, that's the location. So there's just some more pictures of the area. There's plenty of room to build a really nice park there. So I know y'all just did the King Griffey Award, but there's a lot of kids that don't do team sports. I had a hard time with team sports. My ADD didn't really allow it. So I got into skateboarding when I was pretty young. loved it. Moved to a ski resort for several years, came back, started a family. My kids both skateboard. And there's very few places to do it here. So we want to give kids like myself a place where they can skateboard. And then, you know, there's other sports, roller skates, scooters, BMX bikes. I mean, there's a ton of sports that would benefit from the park. Currently, we created a Facebook page. It's growing like crazy. I think right now it's at 425 people. Skateboarding's increased in the U.S. in the past 2 years by about 2 million users. I'm sure every time y'all go around, y'all see people skateboarding. I know you do. I see them all over the place. So this is the slide just shows the median age and the general ages of people that do skateboard. The older demographics are actually on the rise right now as younger skateboarders age. Myself, I go skateboarding probably 2 or 3 times a week with a couple guys, and we're all in our 40s. So I mean, we have meetups all the time. And the good thing about skateboarding is, I mean, it's like, you know, like baseball. You have older people mentoring the younger people. It's not, you know, if you see a kid trying to learn a trick, you're going to do everything you can to make that kid learn that trick. And it's just a great way to build community. It really is. It's not what, you know, your predisposed prejudices are. You know, it's not a bunch of raggedy kids out there causing trouble for the most part. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have that, but for the most part, it's just people that love doing board sports.
And it's worth pointing out that we have plenty of playground equipment, but that caters to the younger childhood. And so oftentimes those kids have a gap between, you know, using playground equipment till they get to, you know, adulthood. Then there's other recreational opportunities. And we feel like a skate park could help fill that void and just keep people being active, you know, throughout their childhood. All right, well, I'm going to step in and take it over and talk about a few of the big issues that we recognize is going to be a big concern for all parties involved. Number one is, I'll give you a minute to see if we can get that back up. So, you know, a big issue that, you know, everyone's concerned about is liability. You know, skateboarding is an inherently risky activity and injuries do happen. But we've done a little bit of legal research into the issue of liabilities just because of the fact that, you know, there are plenty of skateboards all around America, and surely it can't be, you know, a huge legal lawsuit with all of them, or else they wouldn't be there. So basically, just to start off, you know, a little bit, a simple definition of liability is the introduction of risk based on the lapse of responsibility. So, you know, 2 big things we see that would be, you know, a priority to keep the liability at a minimum would be to make sure that the skate park is maintained in a well condition. Obviously, if there's a big gaping hole here or a crack here that could cause somebody to trip and fall, then that would increase the city's liability for it. But we are prepared to, you know, through fundraising and the funding of the project, we would also like to set up a long-term maintenance fund for the skate park that if, you know, in 10 or 5 years it does need major repairs, that money is sitting there in the bank ready to go, and we can act on it. The other big thing to reduce liability is just proper signage and promoting personal responsibility and the use of protective equipment. If you go to the next slide, here's an example of, you know, a sign that lists the rules that another town has used to just, you know, call out all the things that skaters should be doing. As long as this sign is prominently displayed and is in also good working order, that's going to limit our liability. With this being under the bridge, it would be on MDOT right of way. So obviously, they would have to agree to it, approve it. We would seek out a permit from them too, just to do the construction on the right of way. But we just like to point out that MDOT bridges have a wider range of other recreational uses already happening under them. You know, you've got boat launches in Pascagoula. There are pickleball courts underneath the bridges. And even at our own bridge, just down the street from here on the Highway 90 bridge, you've got a walking track on there that has 5K races, people bike and skateboard on it. And to my knowledge, haven't heard of, you know, huge legal lawsuits that have stemmed from that. So, you know, also we wanted to just point out that this is not a new concept. In many other states, there are several skate parks underneath bridges. So we know it's been done before, and we don't see a reason why we shouldn't try to get it done here too. We would also, you know, heavy promotion of use of wearing helmets and protective equipment would definitely be a cornerstone of the skating community. We would promote that. Like Chris was saying earlier, you know, the older generation would definitely help promote that to the younger generation. All right, next slide, please. And so the other big challenge that we recognize is just the sheer cost of it. You know, to do a concrete park here that is, you know, the type that we want to do it is going to be a little bit expensive. We've done some research and reached out to a skateboard park design and construction firm called Grindline. And they have supplied us with a statement of qualifications that listed out some example projects. So based off of those, the cost would be just under $1 million. But like we said, we could phase it out to make that slightly lower. All right, next slide, please.
Matthew, we need to try to wrap this up.
Okay. So we've already touched on the benefits of a concrete skate park, so we can pass through that one, and would just like to say that we would a long-term goal would be to achieve more than one skate spot too, but the benefits of the Highway 90 overpass have persuaded the committee to pursue this as our primary location. But we think we could fit something usable into many other city parks. Next slide, please. So the skate park committee recognizes that some type of formal agreement would need to be executed. It would be our opinion that it just makes sense that this would be some type of city-owned park. So it would be an agreement between, obviously, MDOT would have to give permission, the city, and then the skate park committee, which would probably form some type of nonprofit or business thing just for added protection. And these are kind of just our initial ideas of what the terms of that might be. You know, just covers who would pay for what, and the maintenance of it, you know, just picking up trash and things like that. But then also, like I mentioned before, the long-term maintenance fund of it would need to get set up by the skate park. All right, next slide. And then, of course, you know, how do we pay for it? I think that at least half of the cost of construction could easily be paid for by grants, and would try to get even more than that. There are a lot of skateboard companies that offer grants, and there's a lot of state and federal funding that could fund this. Restore Act funds are a good one because of the economic development, you know, benefits of a skate park. Many business owners around this area have already voiced their support for a skate park. So, all right, next slide, please. So yeah, just in closing, you know, we did a little bit of review of the city's one of the comprehensive plans that was adopted in 2010, and recognized that a priority listed in that plan was to provide new recreational services such as a skate park, natatorium, golf driving range, and a dog park. That I can see, all of these are in one way, shape, or form fulfilled except a skate park. So we just like to fill in the gap here and meet this need. So we've got heavy community support. It's a generational, significantly project. You'd have old and younger people both participating. And we just want to provide a safe place for everybody to skate. So that's our presentation. And if there's any questions, we could.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any comments?
I'd just like to comment, you know, Matthew and I spoke about this probably for 5 years now.
Yeah.
And I agree it's a much needed asset to the city. So I'd just like to continue the discussion and you know, we'll just take it from there, see what happens.
Right, yeah, and I failed to mention that at the beginning, but we're not looking for any kind of formal commitment tonight. We're just trying to get the conversation started and mainly hear everyone's concerns, just so we can adequately address them.
I think the biggest concern is going to be the site to start with.
Right, yeah.
And there are other sites that I'd like to look at. So
I've spoken with Corondo, Lozana, and Kelly Castleberry a little bit about it. And Corondo, he's on board, but Kelly, he's after like just liability.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be the biggest issue there. But let's talk. Let's continue the conversations,
Yeah.
and we'll come up with something.
Okay, and I've got just a simple project summary sheet I'd like to leave with everybody. Just to hang on to. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next item on the agenda is public hearing. 1203 LaFontaine Avenue, PID 600137302200. Request approval of conditional use permit to allow the continuation of existing multifamily building in the R1 low density single family residential district. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to go into public hearing.
Motion by Mr. Cox.
Second.
Second by Ms. Burgess. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Carolyn, you want to explain?
Yeah, it's just what it sounds like. It's that existing multifamily building on LaFontaine right there in the curve. And through discussions with Nancy Allen, the property owner, it is an existing historical non-conforming use. In other words, it can stay in use unless something happens to the structure for a certain period of time. And the concern was, with some of the development going around, if the storm came in and damaged it, would she be able to rebuild? So what this conditional use permit is just allows her to, if it is destroyed through some, fire or natural weather event, that she would be able to continue the use and rebuild. So it really just, it doesn't impact any current use or affect the neighborhood. It just allows her to continue what's been happening there for decades. So we did have the public hearing, and there was no concerns expressed by the planning commission, and they recommend approval.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak for or against the conditional use permit?
Good evening, I'm Nancy Allen, for those who aren't familiar with the owner. And yes, when the new allowance for me to apply for this, which isn't transferable, as I understand, came into play with the subdivision and building on the lots across the street. It raised a huge red flag for me, and so I spoke with Carol, and she recommended that I make this application. The fact of the matter is, if anything catastrophic happened, I don't have enough insurance in this environment to build a new structure. It would simply be for the repairs necessary to continue for the tenants I have. It's not VRBO, it's long-term tenants, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak for or against?
Make a motion to adopt the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
By Mr. Ennis, second by Mr. Larson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request of the conditional use permit.
Motion by Mr.
I'll second
Aldermen,
that motion.
second by Mr. Cox. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there anything, okay, hold on a second, jumping ahead of myself. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Public is agenda public comment. The public is invited to address the board for up to 3 minutes each, a maximum of 30 minutes, only regarding issues on the agenda. Please step forward, identify yourself and the agenda item to be discussed. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on an agenda item? Okay,
I think I might,
moving on.
not sure if I might want to have a.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Brian Harvey. Actually, I'm not sure if it should be having a comment about this now or after y'all discussed it. I'm curious about the moratorium on apartment developments. I'm not sure if
Now's the time to.
Now's the time. Okay. Didn't really.
Where do you
put
live? Where do you live?
528 Jackson Avenue, so right on the corner of Jackson and Porter here. Didn't really put anything together for that. Been a pretty busy week, but I emailed each alderman and the mayor's office a couple of documents, of studies on the pros of multifamily units. So really what I would like to know is kind of what the what the reason is for the moratorium, so I can understand why it's taking place. And it's really why I'm here. Obviously, I want what's best for our town. I've lived here my whole life, and I have a development that I've been working on for quite some time. We bought some property back on March 16th, the old driving range, the 12-acre tract behind Community Bank, and we've been in the process of developing that. And we had our first meeting with the planning department Tuesday for our conditional use permit. It's zoned highway commercial for up to 42 units, but you still have to get a conditional use permit for apartment dwelling. So anyway, the moratorium would definitely impact my development, and really I just want to know what the reason behind the moratorium is, so I can understand it to where making sure that we're making the best decision for our city. I sent out two documents to you guys that had a lot of information in there. Hopefully everybody had a chance to read it. If you did, you would see that the pros of multifamily are there weren't any cons. There was a lot of pros. It's definitely a huge generation of tax revenue. It's good for children. It's good for elderly. It's good for our community. Helps with property values. So I think multifamily developments are definitely needed in our community and the United States abroad. 85% of people that are polled say that multifamily housing is an important need. Affordable housing is an important need. Our particular development, it's going to be very, very nice. It's not low end at any means. It'll be a great addition to our community. My whole thing is I'd love to know the rationale behind it, what kind of fact-based research we've done to come to the idea of this moratorium, and the folks that I've spoken to hasn't really given me much of the feedback on that. So I know my time's up, but I'd love to be able to comment on that maybe after we've heard some information on what we've discovered.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the board on any agenda item? Okay, we're moving on to old business. We have an ordinance to adoption to discuss changing the speed limit on Ocean Springs Road north between Highway 90 and Dina to 35 miles per hour. Alderman Burgess, you want to address this?
Yes, so as was previously discussed, the speed limit from Ocean Springs Road north to King Henry is 35 miles an hour. So I'm just wanting to extend that actually from King Henry to Dina, in anticipation of the Ocean Springs Road project, but also to directly address several residents who've reached out in concern regarding the Dollar General that's being put in. There's going to be a lot of kids wanting to cross the street to visit the Dollar General and going back and forth across the road. And 45 miles per hour for that area, when we have it 35 abutted right to it, it just makes sense. And then after the Ocean Springs Road project is completed, per the engineer's recommendations, we can look at lowering it even further. But at that speed, golf carts will not become an issue because with the impending project, we don't want golf carts on the road there anyway. So it doesn't bring up that problem, but it does address the speed, which needs to be lowered. We have quite a few speeders on the road, and we have had several incidences, not only on Ocean Springs Road, some fatalities, and also at the intersection of Demon. So I think it warrants it. I'd like to make a motion to change the speed limit from 45 to 35 from Ocean Springs Road north to Dina.
A motion by Ms. Burgess, second.
I second that motion, Mayor.
Second by Mr. Cox. Any further discussion?
I expressed my opposition last time, so I'm not going to rehash it.
Okay. All right, we need a roll call on this, Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Nay.
And motion carries 6-1. Okay, next item on old business is an ordinance to adopt, discuss changing the speed limit on Government Street between Washington Avenue and Russell Avenue. Alderman.
Yeah, I had discussed this at the last meeting, asking for you guys to consider this on Government Street from Washington to Russell Avenue. With the traffic on both sides of the road and people walking out between cars and crossing the road, and just for public safety, people getting out of cars into a street that's busy, I requested that we look at changing the speed limit from 25 to 15 from those locations. I make a motion that we pass changing the speed limit from 25 to 15 on Government Street from Washington Avenue to Russell Avenue.
I have a motion by Mr. Aldermen, second by Mr. Wade. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item on the agenda is discuss implementing a moratorium on apartment development. I brought this up a couple of board meeting or two ago, and the reason being is that
the city attorney said that they want that to be effective immediately because 7 of you are here. Y'all didn't make that in your motion.
You would need to make a finding that the health and safety was such that it needed to be immediately enacted.
You want to make that?
Did y'all want to add that?
Yes,
That's it. Okay.
exactly the way Robert just said it.
We need to redo that one, or you can.
The official and read the.
Yeah, let's
do it right. Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Aldermen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wade. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, now, on to the apartment moratorium on apartment development. This is strictly an infrastructure issue, and that's why I'm proposing it. We cannot service some of the smaller developments that we have going on, even restaurants that have to, we had problems with the Zaxby's, because of the volume of water and sewer that we cannot provide to smaller customers. Jackson County Utility Authority sent me a note. They did some research, and apartment complexes strain our utilities 3 times per acre what a single family residential development does. I'm assuming, looking back at this, this audit, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but our revenue went up 300,000, but our contractual services to Jackson County Utility Authority went up $928,000. That is a strain on our utilities. That is a strain on water and sewer. So until we can get a grasp on this, I mean, we're getting ready to spend $18 million in ARPA funding to try to address some of this, but we've identified 36 or $37 million worth of infrastructure improvements that this city needs right now. And going back to when I was first elected mayor, I had a gentleman in Public Works stop me after a meeting, and he said, "Mr. Holloway," he said, "you campaigned on growing the city out to the east." He said, "If you do that, and we have a significant amount of development, it is going to stifle our capacity of water and sewer." He said, "We will not be able to service the customers we have right now." So this is not about affordable housing. It's not about anything like that. It's strictly about infrastructure and what I think is prudent for the city to do, to provide, to be able to continue to provide the services that we need to provide, the basic services. So that's why I'm bringing this back up for discussion.
Well, in speaking to your point, Mayor, I've got a 156 unit complex under development in my ward, and we're currently in phase 2 of the project to upgrade infrastructure just for that one apartment complex. Phase 1 was rerouting the force main on Dean and Groveland. Second phase will be the Dina Road widening, drainage upgrades. So it's, there's a lot of impact by these developments on infrastructure, whether it be sewage, drainage, even our roads. Hopefully that phase 2 will get some proper bids this time and be able to award that contract. There were some issues the first time around, but you're correct. I support your idea for a moratorium. This is not a permanent thing, but I think it's a necessary one.
Is there plans for a study that we discussed to see where we are capacity-wise? We know we're over capacity in that area. The whole area from the east side to central Boulevard. We know that's over capacity because it all dumps at Bechtel pump station out to JCUA. And to your point, the Zaxby's, they have to spend a ton of money, or going to have to tie in across the street rather than to the force main that's over capacity on their side. So there's some work to be done, and we got to back up and pump the brakes on this and figure out our infrastructure issues before we allow more apartments or any big development for that matter.
I'll accept the motion.
Well, hang on a second. This was, I do have a concern for some, like the gentleman that came up here saying they already bought the property and moving forward, trying to get some things done. I'm all for doing the study. I'm all for a moratorium, but at the same time, I don't know that I'm willing to, put the hammer down on somebody that already has a project that they already purchased the property for. I wasn't prepared to vote for this tonight. I thought it was going to be a discussion, and if we are going to vote on it, I'd like to go to an executive session on this one to see if we can, or to go to closed session, see if we can stay in executive session to discuss it further.
Rob, is this an executive session?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Ricky, as to why we would be there.
Well, I would think that that if somebody already has plans and they've already purchased property, wouldn't that be potential litigation if we tell them they can't use it for what they intended to, what they bought the property for?
I don't, not if, there's been no, there has to be a threat of litigation out there, and I haven't heard that.
Okay.
There's no listed,
It's not a listed
Like,
use.
I don't think this is up for vote, and if it is up for vote, I'd like to speak on it. The reason I didn't speak is because I understand it's for discussion. If it's just for discussion, that's fine. If it's up for vote, I need to speak. Matt?
I mean, I'm ready to move forward with it, so that's up to the board.
Well, my understanding was the discussion was last time. Wasn't the discussion, well,
We pulled it last
yeah,
week.
we had, so.
We had some
technically
discussion,
we
and
have-
we didn't, we had discussion on it, but we didn't act on the discussion.
Right, technically.
We've been talking about this for quite a while, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking about it for quite a while. And the mayor's totally correct. I mean, we're stretched to the limit with JCUA and the bills. We can't handle the water and sewer we've got now. And I understand, Ricky, I understand, but business is business.
I understand that.
Unless they've got a permit, unless they've already got a permit for the city, they can have all the plans in the world. We'll have people coming out of the woodwork with plans. So I think we've got to make a decision in the best interest of the city.
We're not stopping anything that is permitted. If you're permitted and you've got the right to build, you're ready to go.
Mayor,
Hold on a second. We'll address you when the time comes. We're not stopping anything that has been permitted, ready to go. All we're saying is we need to pump the brakes on this and make sure that it doesn't stress our infrastructure any more than it already has. There's a lot of discussion about, people wanting to build apartments, and that's even scarier for me, because if you add what is proposed to be built, people in discussions about it, we're over 1,000 more units, almost 1,300 more units to be built in Ocean Springs. And that's a lot of stress on our infrastructure.
I think, like Mr. Blackman said, we need to stop this thing and sit down and do a study and understand where we're at, where we're going. I mean, we just can't jump up and continue like we're doing now, regardless of the
But,
wishes of developers.
And I understand your concern, Ricky, but people buy private property all the time to do projects, but there's no guarantee that this project could have happened anyway. So, that's the problem. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I would definitely like to say something. So the first note is if you look at the agenda, see in 6B, which we've all looked at, it says, go back, it says discuss implementing.
Can you state your name and
Who are you, sir?
My name is Nathan Prescott. I live at 309 Live Oak Avenue. I live in Ward 3. So it says that we're going to discuss implementing a moratorium on apartment developments. I'm open to discussion. The reason I didn't object to the moratorium is because I didn't know it would be for vote today. So like the gentleman here, I purchased a property on Bechtel. Now, before I purchased the property on Bechtel, I did all of my research to find out where I could zone apartments. I asked for no variance. I do nothing like that. The property cost over $270,000, and I've hired Dale Architects, who has been in communication with the city since day one. Dale has put the apartments out to bid, so I'm over $500,000 into apartment development. Now, the reason that I chose that parcel, and the reason that I hired Dale Architects, and the reason that I've got soil borings, and the reason that I've hired engineers is because that property was zoned for multifamily development. So yes, I had a detrimental reliance, lawyer. I had a detrimental reliance on being able to build apartments on that property. So, am I out serious money? Is this gentleman out serious money? Yes. Why are we out serious money? Because we relied on the Uniform Development Code, which was a 100-year plan that said apartments can go here, they can't go here. I'm not asking for a variance. I understand the Sands asked for a variance, and that was problematic. I'm not asking for a variance. I'm asking to do, and legally is what they say, is build by right. Pursuant to the acreage of that property and the setbacks, and Dale Architects, who is a good firm, has 30 architects on it. They've been working it through and making it work. And not only have they been making it work for maximum density, but they've been making it work for mixed use, like yoga studio, Pilates studio, a Zoom room where people can come in and conference, 5 mixed use places where you can get your hair cut or get a massage or whatever you need, law offices and accounting offices. So there's a lot of people in the community who are reliant not on what the board says today,
but we're reliant on what the code says. All we did was search the code, determine where we could build apartments, and now we're on the verge of, we're taking our big shot at it, right? We got 500 grand out. And now, all of a sudden, we see we're going to discuss a moratorium, but that discussion is about to go into a vote. I understand that you need to get your ducks in a row and make an assessment, but if you do make an assessment, why don't we do the assessment prior to telling everybody out here that you're $500,000 out, or $1 million out, or whatever you're out, or whatever anybody else is in this room out. Let us know the facts before you pull the rug out from under us. Because remember what we relied on. We didn't rely on your words. We relied on city planning. We relied on the code. We relied on development. We all read the SANS. We all know what happened at the SANS. We all read those cases. And all we did was come in behind it and say, well, we will build the code. We will build precisely the code. And there's variances granted every month here. And nobody's asking for a variance. We're just asking that a moratorium not be in place.
This is not, okay, hold on here. This is not anything against anybody's particular project, okay? This is about services to the city and being able to provide the services to the city. We're an old city. We've got failing infrastructure. We're trying to fix it, but it's going to take some time. And until we can get it done, or until we can assess it, I just ask that we pump the brakes on these apartments and not stress our infrastructure. You know, I get it. You know, I'm in development, you know, and I don't purchase property unless I have a plan that I'm approved from the city to do what I want to do. None of this stuff is.
Mayor,
so
it's approved by the code.
You're out of order. So,
just 1 minute?
No, you've already spoken. This is about 17,000 people who live in the city of Ocean Springs. You know, and that's what I got to look at. So, anyway, if y'all want to continue the discussion, we can do that. Y'all want to, whatever, you know, I don't have a vote. All I got to do is, you know, express my concerns about this, and that's what I'm doing.
It sounds to me like we do need a little bit more in-depth conversation with our attorney on this. The ones that are in the portal to move forward with plans that has already been to the planning commission to discuss. I believe we need to pump the brakes on making a vote on this tonight, and let's push this.
And we have anybody whose plans that are in the planning commission ready to be approved on?
Well, there's different types. We have the one, the old driving range that has to get a conditional use because it's zone commercial, and that was deferred to the next planning commission, which will be next month. So that is, you know, underway as far as, but that's just for the use itself and don't necessarily have the plans. Multifamily, if it's in a zoning district that allows it specifically by right, goes through design review. It's not a planning commission, it's an internal design review process to make it meet the code. So that would be the next, have they filed a specific application or just had discussions with us? That would be another thing to consider. So we have various phases and various conditions in the discussions we've had.
So my question would be, has that already been done? Or do we have people in queue that have already gone through that process?
Well, we have one that has submitted a design review, it's further out east, and the other ones have not submitted for design review because he has to go through the conditional use first. So, but there have been discussions. It's just waiting to receive the actual application.
You know, that this is a lose-lose situation. I hear the developers out here, they've got money on the line. The city and the citizens have money on the line. The mayor pointed out a while ago, $900,000 versus $300,000, J.C. Bay. That's serious money too. And so this is a hard decision. I personally think we're just gonna have to make a hard decision. I don't know whether we're ready to tonight. Sounds like some folks want to talk and some don't. I take the position that we do need to put the brakes on it and decide what we can do and where we're going. That's my thought.
Mr. Mayor, from legal, my question would be, have we approved anyone? Is there anyone that is in that that's been approved at any phase?
Not approved, just in process.
Thank you.
concern too is that we keep discussing it, more and more will come out of the woodwork once they discover what we're thinking about.
If they're on the fence.
Yep, that's right. The Indian thing.
And a moratorium by definition is temporary.
That's correct.
And based on some of the concerns, we could provide recommendations on the type of, the type of developments that may or may not put the strain. But we haven't been looked at that yet, as far as size or location or anything like that. We need to look at them on a case-by-case basis to make that determination, which is how a moratorium would help.
This version's motion itself, or the proposed ordinance says it's 180 days or until the legally effective date of ordinance is adopted by the board, whichever occurs first. So the max on this, what is in front of you, is 180 days.
Until the ordinance is written.
Well, I make the motion that we place a moratorium on apartments for 180 days.
Got a motion by Mr. Companion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Impey. Do a roll call on this one.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Hey,
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 4-3. Okay, moving on to item D. We also discussed a moratorium on tax abatements based on the urban renewal map being implemented and designed, and Mr. MP wanted me to bring this one back up again. You know how I feel on it. I think we should just not provide tax incentives outside of the proposed urban renewal map that we have, that we're looking at, until we can get our comprehensive plan in place and make some good decisions going forward on that. That's basically what I proposed last time. Without the map, we didn't have a map last time.
and that map hadn't been approved yet.
Right. No,
So
it
it's
hadn't
still
been
in the same
approved.
spot we
No,
were in
and-
last time.
Forgive me, but were we supposed to get something comparable that Pascagoula had?
We're still,
Robert?
That was dealing with the redevelopment authority, the ordinance.
I apologize.
Well, my concern with this is the board has the right to give or not give tax abatement. And whether it's 2 years at 2% or 5 years at 5%, you know, we've only done 15 of them. The money is not that much, and I think that we don't need a moratorium for this. I think we can take it as per case basis. I'd like to see what that comprehensive plan looks like before I vote on just not having this in place.
I have a question as far as, I mean, now that we've established, you know, the true definition of a moratorium, with the previous moratorium, we had that 180 days to do an assessment, to dig deeper and do a deeper dive. What are we digging deeper on this moratorium? And forgive my ignorance.
Well, the yield, you know, what prompted this was the last time we had this abatement, and, you know, we gave an abatement to a developer, and the guy's a friend of mine, and like I told him, it's nothing personal, I like the development, but we're giving abatements in the hottest real estate market on the coast, where we don't have to. So my thinking is, why do we have to give abatements when people are gonna build anyway? I mean, they're gonna invest the money anyway because it makes sense to them financially, and what the city's saving is not going to affect their decision to build or not to build. That's the whole point.
Would it impact in any way the quality of output?
No. But anyway, the urban renewal map was on display. It's been on display for about 2 weeks now, maybe 2.5 weeks. So if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I suggest you take a good look at it. The parcels are designated on this map. We haven't put parcel numbers to the entire proposal area yet, but you can see the parcels identified on the map. There's no action.
Yeah, I think we need to wait.
Okay with that, Mr.
Well, I think it's something that's necessary, but I don't hear the support for it from the board at this time. So, I guess
And I don't know that it is necessary just yet. I mean, we need to take a hard look at the map. But in Ricky's defense, I mean, this is a case-by-case thing too. I mean, even if we did have that, and this goes away, we'd still have the right to go back to that if somebody requested it. I think it's a case-by-case basis. So we don't have to approve any of them. That's an option.
Yep, you're right. All right, next item on the agenda, new business. Appeal 300 Ward Avenue, PID 610-11081.000, appealing UDC requirement of a 10-foot hard surface between road and gravel driveway as well as guest parking along Ward Avenue per the Planning Commission recommendation. Request consideration for approval of gravel surfacing along the reduction to the 3-foot hard surface for the driveway on Kensington Avenue and no hard surface for the guest parking on Ward Avenue. Carolyn?
Yeah, this was obviously difficult to put into a single sentence for the agenda, but this particular property has both a driveway and a guest parking pad that's, parallel to the street. So as has come before you before, a authorization or permission for a gravel drive has to go through Planning Commission. And the code does require a 10-foot hard surface transition between the road and the gravel. So the request on this particular property is to reduce that 10-foot hard surface to 3-foot and to not require it for the guest parking. In a nutshell, that's the request. The Planning Commission heard it, but they don't have the authority to consider any waiver or negation of that hard surface requirement. So that's why it's here to you. But that's what he's proposing, is to do the gravel drive and the gravel guest parking with inclusion of a 3-foot transition on the driveway only.
Why 3 foot instead of 10 feet?
I was going to say, is there a special circumstance in this case that?
I don't know. Property owner is here.
So I have copies here of the document that I emailed. Shane Loper, 300 Ward Avenue.
There's a smaller version of that in your packet, but that one's probably easier to read.
Got the color.
Yeah. Yeah.
They haven't got it.
You already stated your name.
Yeah, time's ticking. Oh, well, the mayor tricked me into saying my name.
He's like, I didn't know it.
All right, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having us here. Ms. Burgess, thank you for coming by and actually meeting with myself and my wife, Mona. Ricky, thank you for responding to the email and, that I sent out. So it's a 12-page document. I'll go through it very quickly. So to answer Mr. Papania, the reason why, we want to provide for current and future rainwater management. As you go through the document, you will see very clearly that mounding of the roadways here in Ocean Springs due to probably cost measures because we don't mill the roadways here continues to just kind of stack up. I don't know when Ward and Kensington are on the list to have paving done, but I'm sure it's going to be sometime in the next 10 years, and when that's done, we'll still be living there, and we'll have a water dam built. We want to complement the surrounding neighborhood and downtown driveway parking. I think there may be 14 driveways on Ward Avenue that are gravel. Provide safe off-street parking. Chief of Police just left, but regularly there are cars traveling upwards probably of 45 to 50 miles an hour down Kensington. I think that's a problem. I outlined that in my email too. I think that's ripe for a very bad accident with golf carts and walkers. Several other pages in the document cover examples of road mounding where the water is damming up, and it's damming up because there are no permeable surfaces. And on Ward Avenue, we were just talking about new development. Ward Avenue is probably over 100 years old. There is no drain water or storm drains nor ditches on our property and adjoining property there. On page, I think that's page 5, you'll see our driveway. There is some water there in the street, but you'll see after a couple of hours in that second photo, left yellow circle, the rainwater is gone. It's still across the street, and you'll see the neighbor across the street has mud and ruts in their yard from the water buildup. Ward's a historic street, page 6. As I said, 14 driveways. The UDC 747 or 7474 kind of conflicts with itself. It talks about preventing ponding and that kind of stuff, and then it also talks about the 10-foot pad. As you see in the next pictures on page 8, Little Children's Park has no barrier. There's pictures of the houses on Ward, parking areas, driveways that have no barrier or no apron. I believe the Happy Place has a new parking lot that has no barrier. Some more pictures of Ward Avenue, one on East Beach. So our request is let it stand as constructed. Let us manage the water through our permeable surface such that it's not going to be backing up into our garage like our neighbors. And if that decision can't be achieved, let us keep the character of Ward Avenue with a rock parking pad, and require me to put up to something up to 3 feet, some hard surface on the driveway. So I think we're trying to be reasonable here and work within the spirit of the code, and just appreciate the time.
Mr. Loper, were you aware of the code before you built these driveways?
Craig, you want to speak to
that? The code office doesn't require a driveway inspection. I called and Amanda and asked her, do y'all still not require a driveway inspection? She said no. And I looked directly across the street, and there was a house built on Kensington. Magnolia had 11. And so, I guess I've been building houses 25 years, and you can ask Daryl, I always try to do the right thing, and I had no idea that the city had adopted a code that would require that you have concrete there. But in the Loper's case, there's the road has a crown in Ward and Kensington. It crowns up. You can't bring dirt or sod high enough to get the water out of your yard to cross over the road. There's no place for it to go. And the way that we did this, it drains through the permeable surface of the rock, and I don't see any evidence of. The only detriment would be if you're supposed to not go too fast on the road anyway. But so if cars are going fast, possibly a rock could hit a windshield, but they shouldn't be going that fast on that road anyway. And if you drive down Ward Avenue, you don't see rocks in the road because the road's higher than the asphalt.
I remember correctly, the house that existed on the property before also had a rock driveway, did they not?
Yes, sir.
Facing Ward?
Yes.
I think the particular, we've got a code of 10 feet of hard surface. And Carolyn, we just don't even enforce the thing. I mean, I agree with this gentleman here, Mr. Loper, that I can find them all over being built right now. We just don't enforce it.
With
I don't know why we have a code then.
It's not that we don't enforce it. It's this was new with the UDC as far as specifically that a gravel drive had to go through planning commission. So it's one of those things that's why you're dealing with it right now. And it's just not, we've been struggling with it. And one of the things that we will have on our list to do is look at possibly modifying that and simplifying it for the reason, that the 10-foot, it's the 10-foot transition that is always problematic because planning commission can't even authorize that or accept a compromise. So that's why these all have to come to you, and we have that on the list to come up with some suggestions.
What's interesting to Tanya is that parking has 19 feet. It's 19 feet at the max radius. Yes, sir. If we brought it down to 10 foot, guess what? This isn't an issue anymore. So I think there is some room there to tighten this up for sure.
I think, and most aldermen don't like the idea of gravel going to an asphalt road because the gravel stays in the road for joggers, bikers, people that are driving cars. And I think it's common sense that there should be some kind of barrier at the end of a gravel driveway. But like I said, it's been, since I've been sitting up here, they've been doing it. Right. So,
If I may say something, no, nothing against Craig, 'cause I've known Craig a long time. We actually do enforce driveways. We actually do look at driveways prior to having them poured. And we also, when we do a final on the house, that's when we make sure that everything is in place on the driveway. That is part of the inspection we actually do. So it actually is enforced. I hate that he was misinformed, but the ladies take driveway inspections all the time. So we do look at them.
And we've given several variances on this in the past, and we always put that stipulation in there that if it becomes an issue where the rocks are in the road, we will come back and readdress and possibly make them do the 10-foot. But I do have the 10-foot easement on my driveway, and there's several others that haven't put it in, and they haven't requested not to do it. So, I mean, in this situation, I feel like it was a rock driveway before. I think it fits the neighborhood, and I think it's what you consider.
And that's what the planning commission did consider that and approved within the limits of their authorization, they approved the gravel drive, but could not make the exception for the 10-foot. So that's why primarily what's in front of you today for Mr. Loper is reducing that 10-foot to a 3-foot and not requiring it for the guests.
I think to your point, Carolyn, I think there needs to be a discussion about possibly revising that, but for today's purposes.
Right, today's purposes, this is what we have to work with.
And then looking at the property, and Mr. Loper's very amenable to the idea of even putting some sort of barrier on the guest drive as well.
I would ask you to consider it as constructive, but I mean, we'll end up having to do what the board tells us to do.
I'll say this, Mr. Loper, and I don't know why we have a planning commission if we don't back them up. I mean, they do the research, they listen to staff, they send the recommendations to us, and prior boards have gotten in a lot of trouble by not backing their decisions by planning or recommendations from planning. I agree, it's 10 foot may be excessive, and we need to look at that in-house. But I would like to see a little, at least a 3-foot on the side you're asking for done.
All right, do we have someone that would like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the appeal and let them do it as outlined on the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Aldermen, second by Mr. Wade. Any other discussion? Okay, to be clear, Ricky, what are you saying? No.
That would be 3 foot.
3 foot.
That'd be 3 foot on the
Kensington
driveway.
in Kensington, and then on the others on Ward it would be none.
Okay, so that's the motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have two. Okay, motion carries. Three.
I'm sorry.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing? Yes. Doesn't even have to do with this. So we were here about 2 years ago, and you agreed to allow us to remove a magnolia tree. We planted one of the 2 oak trees that we committed to. So I would like to know who I need to talk with to locate that second tree in the city here somewhere, because we don't have room for it on our property.
The gentleman right there.
Okay. So just in good faith, just wanted you to know that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Jay. Next item on the agenda is to appoint open positions on boards and commissions. We'll let Vicky handle this.
I've got the results here, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Tyler Cox to the historic.
Wait,
Hey,
one
hold on
second.
just a minute.
He didn't turn his.
I come in at the last minute, this was under a bunch of papers.
Didn't turn it on.
Well, we've already done it. Okay, now I'll make a motion to reappoint Tyler Cox to the Historic Preservation Commission, term beginning August 1st, 2022 and ending July 31st, 2026.
Motion by Mr. MP,
Second.
second by Mr. Alderman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion to reappoint Joe McCormick to the Planning Commission representing Ward 6, term beginning August 1st, 2022, ending July 31st, 2025.
Motion by Mr. MP,
Second.
second.
I did. Second. Let me get this thing closed.
Any
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion to appoint Paul Kirkland and, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Yebri Gonzalez to the Park Advisory Board, terms beginning August 1st, 2022 and ending July 31st, 2027.
Motion by Mr. MP,
Second.
second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor?
Aye. One question, when do they meet and where? Are they meeting at parks again?
We're meeting at parks. We've let me back up. We've been meeting in certain places, Ryan Youth Center, Mary C, just so the Parks Advisory Board can see.
Once a month?
It's been once every other month, because we've been having trouble getting forms. We'll get back on track, meeting once a month.
I'm glad you said that about the following forums, because we have something in place that if they can't be at the meetings, then they shouldn't be on those committees. So, I mean, it's not just a status thing where you ever say, well, I'm on the planning commission or historical or whatever, and just not come.
Each
So,
commission has their own bylaws that allow them to make a recommendation that somebody be removed if they're consistently not attending.
Yeah, I would think that we need to start following that if we have on any boards that people are not showing up.
They need to create.
I mean, I was on the Rob and I were on planning commission when we went through a phase of that, and it's terrible when people want to be at meetings and then the rest of them are just kind of like, it's not convenient.
It's hard.
Okay, let's move on, please.
All right, then make a motion to appoint Joey Conwell to the Planning Commission representing Ward 4, term beginning August 1st, 2022, ending July 31st, 2025.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
MP, second by Mr. Alderman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to appoint Shannon Piper and John O'Hara to the Zoning Adjustment Board, terms beginning August 1st, 2022, ending July 31st, 2025.
Motion by Mr. MP, second by Mr. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have anything to pull from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I need to pull item 2B off the addendum for the consent.
Anything else? Okay, do a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Wait. Did we have, I'm sorry, which one did you say, Bobby?
2B on the addendum.
Okay.
Ready?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda with the exception of item 2B from the addendum.
Motion by Mr. MP,
Second.
second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So item 2B is accept resignation of sports complex supervisor Mario Prater.
Yes, sir.
July 29th, authorized to begin the process of filling vacant position.
We're just pulling that off the agenda, Mayor. That's,
He's decided to stay.
decided to stay.
Okay, so no action taken. All right. Next item on the agenda is department reports. Motion to approve payment claimant dockets. Franklin,
We have one item
anyone
on,
have anything to pull?
We have one item that was on.
item 3A under department reports. Make a motion to accept the document